Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with one of the boxes that we have really all been waiting for a long, long time. The Karel Ancerl Czech Philharmonic live recordings. Now, these were recorded from the late 50s until about 1968, when Ancerl, of course, left Czechoslovakia in protest of the Russian invasion. And, Ancerl was such a great conductor. Everybody admits that. Everybody wishes there were more. Everybody wishes that Supraphon would put everything he did in a box and just issue it. That would be really, really great, Supraphon. But in the meantime, they've come up with these 15 discs of live, mostly live anyway, broadcast recordings that are absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. And I'm going to tell you what's in it, and we're going to listen to some samples, and then you are going to rush out and get your copy. Now, sonically, these are limited. Some of them are in stereo. Most of them are mono. Some of that mono is limited, rather flat dynamics, broadcast quality mono. Not all of the performances are fabulous. I mean, it's only natural, but most of them are. And there's some great stuff in here that's not in his discography otherwise. Of course, you begin here with Ma Vlast. Don't ask me why. I mean, he did a very good Ma Vlast. It's on Supraphon already, and this is a very good Ma Vlast too, and it's on Supraphon now, and it's in stereo, and okay, fine. So we get Ma Vlast, and it's okay. I don't need another Ma Vlast, but I understand why they put it there. So, this is from 1968, May 1968. In stereo, so it was one of the last before he left. And then we get, Mozart's Adagio in E major for violin and orchestra with Josef Suk, and the Fifth Violin Concerto with Alexander Plotchek, and the Concerto for Flute and Harp with Geza Novák and Karel Petras, and finally Dvořák's Scherzo Capriccioso. Very good performance. Now, these are all with the Czech Philharmonic, which is wonderful. And it's very interesting. The live Czech Philharmonic in the Rudolfinum, which is where they recorded most of these things, it takes some getting used to, because the Rudolfinum is an incredibly reverberant space. But when they record it for radio with an audience, the audience sort of sucks up a lot of the reverberation, except at the ends of things. So, and the radio broadcast, the microphones tended to be rather close up. So the sound of the orchestra is in fact rather dry until you hear like a pause when there's this reverberation going off into the distance. It's not terrible. I mean, it's not, horrible, awful, or unlistenable or anything, but it is curious. And I'm just letting you know. Then we've got some Beethoven, a really dynamic Coriolan overture, the Triple Concerto with Josef Suk and Josef Chutro and Jan Panenka, or is it Chuchro, however you pronounce it, and Jan Panenka, and the Second Symphony. Now, Ancerl recorded very little Beethoven, and he was a very good Beethoven conductor. On the next disc, CD4, you've got the Eighth Symphony with Mendelssohn's Italian and Strauss's Don Juan. Oh boy, does that smoke. Wow, great Don Juan. You can tell because the timing's 16 minutes, 11 seconds. And that's really fast, which is what you need in Don Juan. That's like Kempa style Don Juan. It's great, but you've got to hear the Beethoven Eighth. I mean, in fact, you're going to. Let me play you a little bit of that unbelievable moment in the first movement, development section, leading up to the recapitulation. Now, this is mono. It's from 1960. Sound is not fabulous, but it's awfully listenable. And even with this mono sound, you can hear that this performance has more transparency, top to bottom transparency, those amazing bass lines and the trumpets and drums and that approach to the climax where the theme is in the bass and you actually hear it, and it's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, what this must have been indescribable live, this moment, because this is the most exciting moment of arrival that Beethoven ever achieved in a symphony. It really is. And it's just astonishing. Here, listen to this. Hot stuff, huh? Isn't that unbelievable? It just blew me away when I heard it. It really did. So then we get Dvořák 7 and 8, which are astonishingly fine. And I particularly like the 8th because it's not one of those typical Czech performances I complain about with the sort of boring finales. These are all whiplash tight, exciting performances. So that's really great. And they're new to Ancerl's discography. Very, very important recordings then. One is from 62 and the other is from 1960. They sound just fine. They really do. And then we have Dvořák's biblical songs sung by Ladislav Mraz. Those are lovely songs. You hear them now regularly in churches, in their English versions, but they are beautiful, beautiful pieces. And then the Ancerl Symphony. And this is another performance where, the intensity live must have just been unbearable. I don't know how people survived it. I really don't. I'm going to play you a bit of the end of the first movement. And I know, through this medium, it's not going to sound as fabulous as it does, if you actually own the discs. But, and again, this is from 1967. And it's mono, but wow. Whew. It's never mind me. Listen to this. I don't need to say anything else after that, do I? Okay, then you also get Josef Suk's Ripening, his tone poem, and Forster, Josef Bohuslav Forster was Mahler's friend, his Symphony No. 4, the Easter Eve Symphony, which is quite lovely, and it's been recorded a bunch of times. And then, CD8, Jan Klusak, Variations on a Theme by Gustav Mahler. 18 minutes and 56 seconds of total hooey. Oh, this is everything that's wrong with the avant-garde and people who tried to be one of them. It's unbelievably funny. This is what happens. It starts out with thump, squeak, eek, screech, bloopity bloop, wacka wacka, eek, that, like that, right? And then all of a sudden, in comes the Adagietto from Mahler's Fifth. The whole first big paragraph of it, a couple minutes of music. And then it dies away. Da da da, eek, eek, do do do, eek, do do, etc. for the next 18 minutes. It's just horrible. It was recorded previously on Supraphon. I had the record, and to see that someone played it more than once, I had no idea it would be ever played again. Ooh, it's funny. It's funny. Then we have two masterpieces by Vítězslav Novák. Novák is one of those composers we just need to get a serious series of stuff because he wrote masterpieces, big, juicy orchestral masterpieces. You get his Autumn Symphony, which has large orchestra, male and female choruses, and oh my goodness, it's just huge and tremendous and exciting. And you hear it well enough to know that we need a good modern recording of it. We desperately do. And his tone poem, Pan, which is also for piano. It's this enormous thing that he later orchestrated. And there's a recording on Marco Polo that's good enough. It tells you what's going on there. But a new one would be most welcome. And then Mussorgsky's Songs and Dances of Death. Isn't that fun? And these which was the orchestration by Otakar Jeremias. Czech composer, usually we hear like the Shostakovich orchestration or someone, I think Svetlanov did one too. Anyway, Ladislav Mraz is the soloist, the bass soloist. Then we've got a French disc. We've got La Mer, Debussy's La Mer, and the Nocturnes. Now, the problem with the La Mer is simply that the sound is bad. This is the worst that the sound gets. It's from 57? Yeah, maybe. There's a question mark. They're not sure. The performance itself is fun to listen to, but it's so dynamically constricted. It's somewhat hard to take. And the Nocturnes, well, these are weird. They're very quick. Nuage is very fast. Fête is very fast, but that's okay. It's a fête. And the sirène at the end, he has, usually the women, they go doo-doo-doo-doo, ah, 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 ah. It's a sirène. I sound more siren-like than, in the firehouse sense than the choral sense that Debussy intended. But he has them making vowel sounds. They go meow, meow, meow. It's like my cat. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but it's kind of funny. Then you get Ravel Scheherazade with Suzanne Danko. Nothing not to love there. She's amazing. And the Rhapsody Espagnole, an unbelievably clean, clear, colorful performance. Wonderful. Then we've got this is Disc 11. This is really interesting. Listen to this. You get Elgar's introduction in Allegro with the Smetana Quartet, no less. And it's very, very good. And the Vaughan Williams Tallis Fantasia, also very, very good. And it scared me to death because it said here that I was looking at this and it said, oh my God, the timing's 18 minutes. It wasn't 18 minutes. It's just a little smudgy. It's 16 minutes. And there's applause at the end, so it's not even that. It's normal timing. Beautiful performance. And then this is very interesting. Walter Piston's Toccata for Orchestra. It's a little unsteady ensemble at the beginning, but what's so fascinating about the Toccata for Orchestra is that it sounds almost exactly like Martinu, the way that they play it. You listen to it, you would think it's something by Martinu. You really would, from his neoclassical period. It's fascinating. It really is, because there's more Martinu later on. And, you listen to the Piston Toccata and you go, oh, that's Piston. Really, really funny. And the Prokofiev Scythian Suite, very slow performance, but one of those I want to hear every single detail of the orchestration type deals in the first movement particularly. And you do. And it's weird. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on there that you never knew was there, but you can hear it. And then finally, Ludoslavsky's Musique Funèbre for string orchestra. Then CD12 is Martinu, the Concerto Grosso for chamber orchestra, which is quite famous. Symphony Number 1, which is just beautiful. Again, it's one of those performances, the tempi seems slow, but Ancerl is so rhythmic that, you never get a sense that the music is bogging down or not moving the way it's supposed to. You just hear all the rhythm. You hear all of the detail. It's a very, very interesting performance of the First Symphony, and not blurry at all. Martinu can sometimes sound like it's sort of this dreamy fuzz, but there's no fuzz in this performance. It's all marvelously clean and clear. And then the fabulous Jan Novák, who was like the Martinu successor, Concerto for Two Pianos and Orchestra. Novák is another one of those composers, Jan, not Vítislav, that we've got to hear more of in modern sound. And I have to say something about, because we're going to get more to this, and I don't want to repeat myself, but about sort of the Czech musical establishment. It's a very provincial bunch of people. And, they may get pissed at me for saying that, but it just is, because they have fabulous, fabulous composers. And what does Supraphon do? What are we getting? We get more, we got this, thank God, but we get more and more Dvořák and Janáček and Smetana and Martinu now we get once in a while. But, there's this whole body of composers, a dozen of really good composers who deserve to be played, who deserve to be given serious attention. And if the Czechs don't do it, no one will. But the problem is, it's not just that they tend to be rather provincial in their thinking. The problem is that there's a political dimension to all of this, because some of these composers were supported or patronized by the communist regime, and so they're out of favor now. And that, as I will soon explain to you, is a really big issue. I mean, the rest of the world doesn't particularly care. But in the Czech Republic, or Czechia, whatever you want to call it nowadays, it's still a lot of lingering rivalry and jealousy and maybe deserve it. Maybe some of these people were horrible informers and lapdogs of the regime. I understand all of that. But my only concern is whether or not they wrote wonderful music, one of the great traditions in Western classical music. And so, we're stuck for now. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. Okay, so next we get Isha Křička. Isha Křička lived from 1904 to 1968. He wrote wonderful music. He really did. Actually, there's some more of it that Ancerl recorded on regular Supraphon, thank goodness. And it's really fun. He was almost like the Czech Poulenc. He was a very neoclassical, fun to listen to composer. And you get his symphonies 1 and 3. He wrote 4 symphonies. And here is, I'm going to play a little bit. In fact, I think I've got the whole scherzo. Yeah, it's only 2 minutes and 10 seconds long. It's almost a miniature masterpiece. The whole scherzo, it's a scherzino, presto prestissimo of the 3rd Symphony. I mean, you'll see what I mean. You just want to hear this guy. But we need modern recordings of it. We really do. Anyway, here it is. Delightful, huh? I mean, so he's great. And then there's Jaroslav Ježek, who was, 1906 to 1942. His Fantasy for Piano and Orchestra, a beautiful, rhapsodic, dreamy work, about 16 minutes long, played by Václav Holzknecht on the piano with the Prague Radio Symphony Orchestra. It's really, really lovely. This was recorded in 1948. Oh, this is early. Yeah, wow, 49, somewhere in there. It's really, really a lovely work. And along with that, we get the Stravinsky Concerto for Piano and Winds, played by Zdeněk Jílek, which is fine, from 1967. And then on CD 14, we get Hindemith's Philharmonisches Konzert, which is a theme and variations. It's a greatly virtuosic, fun, sort of that pre-nice Hindemith period. It's from the 1920s, his Weimar period. It's great. It was written for the Berlin Philharmonic. And then Jiří Power, his Rhapsody for Orchestra, another one of those Czech composers who we want to get to know, and we probably never will. And Miroslav Kabelach. Yes, Kabelach. I think, if I see yes, it's a hat check. Kabelach, really, really interesting. His 5th Symphony, subtitled the Dramatica. It's for wordless soprano and orchestra. And boy, does this lady get a workout. Wow. It's a tough piece to sing, full of really imaginative textures and sonorities, and fun to listen to. It's about, 39 minutes. And boy, if you're the soprano, I pity you. It's a lot of work. But what a wonderful, wonderful piece. Libusha Domaninska does one heck of a job with the soprano part. And then we have Jindřich Feld. He's somewhat well known. He's another wonderful composer I'd like to hear more of. He was, 1925 to 2007. He was around for a long time. This is his Concerto for Orchestra, which is extremely virtuosic and fun to listen to. And finally, last but not least on CD 15, oh yes, Schulhoff's cantata, the Communist Manifesto. I kid you not. Schulhoff wrote it's an oratorio or a cantata, an oratorio, the Communist Manifesto. Can you believe it? Now, when I did some work for Supraphon way back 20 years ago, when they were in many different hands, and just after they'd been privatized and whatnot, to look in their archive and see what might be worth issuing. And I was really into Schulhoff at that point, and they have a recording of the Communist Manifesto. It's in there. I don't know who's doing it. I don't remember who's doing it. But I wanted that released so badly. Oh my goodness. I was saying, yeah, you got to release it. They said, we can't. We just can't. I mean, communism just ended. There's no way that's going to happen here. And I understand, but now it looks like maybe enough time has passed. And Ancerl, of course, being the conductor, that puts a different slant on things, doesn't it? This was recorded, let me see if it says, must say here somewhere. Oh, here it is. It was recorded in 1962. And boy, is this a piece of, well, what do you expect? It's the Communist Manifesto, and it's Schulhoff in his rabble-rousing, populist style. So there's a lot of screaming, a lot of very enthusiastic screaming. It has 4 movements, a big, noisy, march-like introduction. Es ist hohe Zeit. It's high time. Yeah. And then we have, let's see, it's sung in Czech, by the way, but, these are, German equivalents. And it ends with Vereinigt euch. Let's unite. Workers of the world, unite. It's a 3-minute scream fest. I mean, really, it is one of those period pieces that is so extraordinary and so sort of alarming in what it is that it's hard to believe that it really exists, but it does. The only thing I would rather hear than this, quite frankly, is the lost legendary apocryphal Karl Orff oratorio based on Mein Kampf. I'll bet that's really special too. It must be just fantastic, almost as good as this. I don't know. Anyway, this is wonderful. This whole set is wonderful. You've got the complete, amazing Ancerl 15 CDs of radio broadcasts, live recordings of all kinds of stuff that's new to his repertoire. And I just know that, this is such a collector's item. There are a lot of people who are going to want this. The sound won't bother them. It didn't bother me. And just to get to know him better, one of the great podium masters of the 20th century, whose work was so terribly circumscribed, first by being a victim of the Nazis and spending the war in a concentration camp because he was Jewish, and then having to deal with the Czech regime and leaving the country in 1968, and making the rest of his life in Toronto, but not making records in the same way, when he led the Czech Philharmonic in what was arguably its golden age. And here it is, 15 discs of that golden age. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed listening to these samples, and you will enjoy the set even more. I guarantee it. Take care.